It's day 177 of Ukrainian resistance. It's Vasyl Samokhvalov, and it's our discussion that is dedicated to the children of war, their socialization and their adaptation. And we will try to answer who and how will go to school on the 1st of September. And we will discuss this on the basis of research conducted by Lviv region together with the Council of Europe. And today we are hosting Olena Abramyuk, who is a psychotherapist and regional coordinator of the Malta Aid. We also have Ivanna Herus, who is head of the ongoing deputy commission. We also have Yulia Hvozdovych, who is participant of the project of Council of Europe, representing Ukraine, and Oleh Dukas, who is expert of the Council of Europe and participates in the democratic process of decision-making in Ukraine. Good morning to everyone. I will ask now to show some extracts from your research so that you present to us what kind of research it was, how you conducted this survey, and what are the main conclusions or the main trends visible based on this survey. So we start from you. Thank you. So briefly, I will tell about our project from the Council of Europe. It deals with involving residents into decision-making in different communities. Since IDPs became part of the communities, we have an important issue raised: how to involve residents, children, into the city life, life of schools in particular. Because of that, since many children will attend our schools locally, we have a question raised: what environment we have to create for them so that they could study efficiently. And that's why we had a couple of consultations, and the main issue for these consultations was how to adapt children to the new circumstances of school attending. Within that scenario of consultations, we created focus groups. We conducted a game, You Change, then a lab, according to the methodology of the Council of Europe, a strategic session. We also conducted a survey, a questionnaire. So these were the main techniques we used, and we also made a mapping of the stakeholders and defined the people that we were going to involve into the process of consulting. So this is briefly about the consulting process. Well, I think then maybe next one should be Yulia after the mapping of the stakeholders. We should listen to hear. We would like to hear what our target audiences tell us and what are the conclusions of this survey. So what can we say about the 1st of September? Yes, indeed, we had a lot of people in our question process, and we also involved children, both local and IDP children who came over to us in order to continue their studies here. We made a lot of conclusions, and we would like to make sure everyone who is watching us can get acquainted with all these results. So I will switch to my next slide. Having asked everyone, we came to the conclusion that for the IDPs, for their families, both for children and for parents and even for teachers who are in the IDP families, this is the main set of questions, not necessarily problems, but questions that have to be attended. And we, as welcoming and friendly Ukrainians who are hosting people who were running from war, so that they could remain Ukrainians and do not go any further, so that we could further together rebuild our Ukraine, we have to solve these questions. First of all, it's the question of language barrier and cultural differences. In the course of survey, everybody stressed this, especially the IDPs themselves. And unfortunately, it happened so that for many years, children in eastern and southern regions received their educational services in Russian. So in Lviv, children have all classes in Ukrainian, apart for those who that are foreign language classes. In Donetsk region, in Kherson region, for some reason, all the subjects, including maths, were in Russian. That's why now for them, the most significant and uncomfortable thing would be to overcome this language barrier. There were lots of discussions that presented a lot of stereotypes from local Galician people, but I think we have to help children how to change this and swap into Ukrainian. The second question is psycho-emotional state of the school children. Not only, this is valid not only for IDPs, because after the consulting, we realized that the majority of these questions pertain not only to IDPs, but also to the local children. Because even here in Lviv, we could hear missiles, we saw explosions, and the whole society is on alert all the time. That's why we were also offering some decisions pertaining to this question. IDPs and also children who left Ukraine abroad, they have the problem of binary education because they don't want to lose a connection with a local school, but at the same time they want to study abroad. So this is the challenge financial, to make sure that the money is not spent there and there, and also how to make sure that children would go back after some time, because many children left. And we also stress, because teachers, this is the concern of the teachers, the communication with the parents of IDPs, because there are many issues that may later on bring some social tension. So we try to prevent this already now, especially material provision requires special attention, not only for IDPs, but also for those children who are struggling financially. Although we did not stress on this question, the security of offline studies, there are lots of different opinions to go offline, to go studying offline, or to continue with online. It was not the main focus of our survey, but during the consulting period, many experts were giving us a lot of good pieces of advice, and we couldn't avoid including them into our conclusions and our results, because they should be used. Also, we realized that we are facing a huge risk that many Ukrainian children who moved here may simply be left out of the educational process. And that's why we pay attention to this constitutional right of all children, the right to study, because the state has not yet developed all the mechanisms to be able to trace whether the children who left the occupied territories really send their children to school or are sending their children to school. And children themselves say that it's very significant for them to attend school. So the techniques of adaptation of children or from IDPs families, taking off the stress, it's one of the ways to lessen the stress is to engage them into different extracurricular activities, group activities, and here we provide recommendations for the communities how to cope with this challenge. And the last one is motivation and psycho-emotional state of teachers and school administration. This does not have to deal with IDPs, but this is the management of the school that will provide or not provide a good quality process for everyone. Is that all? That's very briefly about the issues and the topics that we researched. the ones that are significant, and these are the questions for which we have solutions for the Lviv region. The next question will be probably addressed to Ivanna. And what will change as a result of all of this on the 1st of September? Just 1, 2, 3. So the classes at school open. What will be the percentage of children that will continue attending school? What will be the percentage of new children? If we take general statistics, we can say that the number of children who left Ukraine and the children who, let's say, who left Lviv region and those who moved to Lviv region, they are more or less the same. According to the current statistics, we think that by the end of August, these figures may change. Around 10% of IDPs will attend Ukraine Lviv schools, which is quite a bit. And we will face the question how the classmates, how the class masters, how they will be able to arrange this process. Because when we are talking about adapting of children from IDPs families, this somehow encompasses also the question of those children who are local, who have been always Lviv residents, how they will coexist together and how they will be helping each other. Because it is not significant only to adapt new children, but to show how this can be and then how this example children will see and then implement in their own lives. Because I'm sure that after our victory, a bulk of children who left their houses would like to go back, and they would have contact with Lviv children. Maybe by that time they will be teenagers, because we don't know how the reconstruction of those territories will happen. And this will also help on the national level to develop and strengthen Ukraine. It is also significant that when children see that something is being done and they can participate in this, after the victory, I can understand that some of them will have this desire to go further and to change. So we saw a nice example. So it's doable. We can do it. Then they can go to the local authorities, to some NGOs, to become really active civilian, active civilians. I think that in every class you will have around 3 newcomers. Yeah, it depends very much, because some communities received more IDPs, some received less, but the average would be somewhere around 3, 4 years. But in some classes we will have more, in some classes we will have less. And the next question is to psychologists, because any changes in teams, in groups, will inevitably bring conflicts, division between my and not mine, ours and aliens, those who can adapt and those who are very slow in adapting. You have raised a very apt question, and the answer is on the slide. The first thing to be done is to support teachers with psychological support, because the space created for children will foster their behavior and will direct their behavior. So of course there will be me and the other, there will be me and the aliens, but the teachers, if they continue working on this, I think children will not manifest as such a big division as you have just mentioned. So I think that the psychological state of the administration of schools and of the teachers is the necessary basis. We have to enforce this. We have to strengthen this, because our education is a rather rigid construction, closed construction, where everybody knows everything, can do everything, and they don't let in international organization or some outside interventions. But now this is very necessary. It's critical, because the fact that we meet, that we will be together, means that we will have a lot of work to do. Our organization works with IDPs and with the community, because we are aiming at integration. We have to understand what is happening in the community, to what extent community is stable, to what extent the challenges we are facing are overcomable by them. So by this way of equilibrium between the IDPs and the community, because Yulia mentioned that we also suffered, we are also under a constant threat, and we are in the conditional safety. Which markers should both parents and teachers operate to deliver the message that everything is good or everything is not good? Well, psychologists should work here, because however intellectual and emotionally mature you are, if you are not assessing the general situation, if you are not following the interaction, the peculiarities of communication, and if you don't have a professional eye, then you cannot mark easily. But of course, if there are some conflicts, if there is non-acceptance, then of course this should be somehow paid attention to. But in our focus groups, we discussed already that there should be some special instructions about safe space in the educational process, because educational process is one of the processes that is supposed to be safe, the processes in which you can go through without trauma. You can go through very serious traumatic experiences, but be left without trauma, because the safe space is about friends, about mentors, my teachers, my supporting team. Teacher has to be a very stable figure in this process. My question to everyone, as of today, um, in Lviv, we are solving a rather urgent situation. The 1st of September is coming, and we need all children to attend schools. But talking about the future, talking about the fact that those who left will come back, and not necessarily they will come here because they will find a job here, and they will become residents not of Kharkiv or Kiev region, but of Lviv region. So this is already about challenges for future. We will need more schools, more classes, more teachers, more of everything. What's to be done with that? As for me, this summer, a correct decision was taken not to optimize the educational network, so not to close schools that have a little amount of children. I mean, in rural areas, those schools will continue uh, educational processes in the previous format. So it was decided not to close, not to shut down anything, for the reason that we don't know what we are facing, and maybe these schools will be in demand in future. I think the process will start in the middle of September, because we will know more or less, it will be clear more or less which children stay for this year and which children not. And then it will be apt to take a decision what's to be done with the network. In case if we will have a lack of teachers, what to do with all this and where to find money for all this, because this is also a very significant issue. Because we cannot take some premises and to turn it into a school, because school has some requirements. There should be a kitchen, there should be some room for teaching staff, there is also room for psychologists and for promoting teachers. So I think that we will need more young people who will be able to become teachers facing these new challenges. So I think this is one of the most feasible results for future. I would like also to add that probably the amount of children did not increase that much, because we know that some of the locals left, including children, and they will be simply substituted by the children from IDP families. That's why I think that this educational year we will not feel that gap or that lack. We hope that the children from abroad will return, and in future we will have more IDP children, and then we will be already facing this problem. Yes, we have to preserve this, as Ivanna mentioned, network of schools. In the focus groups, We heard about recommendations that if a school increases the number of children, then maybe some additional classes can be opened. It is not practiced anymore to have, two shifts, 2-day shifts of attending school. We're not practicing it really that much, but this is already a last resort solution. Now let's talk about the Lviv residents who left. So supporting connection with children who left abroad. But we understand that this is the issue not only of children, but also of their parents. But if their parents find good job, if they get socialized in that new environment, if they get perspective for getting a citizenship, and some countries are officially or non-officially working on leaving our immigrants outside in their countries. So this is highly qualified, educated people, and they are interested in leaving them there. So what can we do to make sure that our children attend our schools, at least in the online format, and remain Ukrainian students, Ukrainian school children? I can start and Yulia will add. One of the points that is significant, we recommend to schools and school class masters to conduct some online classes to engage children from abroad. Those may be discussions, those may be just meetings to make sure they are getting in touch. Because if they're staying somewhere in Poland, in Spain, so we forget about them because they are so far away. Sometimes we get in touch with them and sometimes we do not. So we need to make sure that there is a platform for staying in touch. It can be an exchange of experience. It may be studying foreign language. Let's say if someone stays in Poland, that child can teach Polish language to his or her peers. It depends how much teachers will be willing to participate in this. Uh, what should be the motivation of class masters? I think that any motivation from teachers is about love, because currently they will not get any donations for this or dotations. And if children are taught by one teacher, then teacher treats those children as his or her own children. So communication with children, communication with teachers tells us that they would love to get their children back. They miss them, they are missing them, and they would like to create something to make sure that they get in touch with children. Maybe parents will come back from time to time, and at least for these short periods of time, they will be able to get in touch with their classmates. I was asking not only about children, but also about parents, because the choice is not so much about the choice of a child, but rather of his or her children. In what school, online, offline, these are decisions made by parents. I would like to add to what was said by Ivanka. Yesterday, we were trying to communicate this when we were talking to the educational leaders in different communities, that this is also about patriotism. I think that the majority of children, of teachers, I'm sorry, the majority of teachers were following the demographic trends in our society, and they understand how much we will lose of the population even without war. I don't know whether those who are watching us understand this process, but you remember that at the beginning of 2000s we had a massive shutdown of kindergartens because there was a dropping of birth rate. Now this generation is 19, 20, 22, and they are the ones who will give birth to children. They are critically low amount of them, and they will be giving birth to a critically little amount of children. So we have calculated that in our nearest future, one grown-up, one adult will have to maintain two pensioners. Now we have 1.5, but it will be 2 and even more. So we are hoping that our teachers are conscientious. But that's why we are a regional commission. We are a regional authority. that is supposed not only to give recommendations and encourage do something, but really give directives. What are the main things that should be done at school? How to get in touch with those families who have left, because we need to get these children back. And a school for grown-ups. I am mom myself, and I know how decisions are taken in our family. And where my child will go to study is also a factor for me. Some some families were happy to see open borders and to flee, but there were some families who really left because they were forced to. There were some wives of the military men where military men simply asked them, please go and leave the country. I want to make sure that you are in safety. Most probably, these women will go back together with their children when the war is over. But if exactly the school may be that one factor that will force parents take decision to come back. This will not cost much. It will not cost anything to get in touch with their own class. Some schools introduce free listener format when a child is getting in touch with the school only to attend certain classes or certain subjects. I think this initiative can be multiplied on the regional level. I wanted to say that everything is not so easy, because to get adapted in a foreign country also demands some effort. But our women are very adaptive. Yes, because they were running away from war, or they were using this chance to go. Because Yulia is talking about patriotism. Uh, you could see that it's emotional, because whatever nice life you have in Britain or Switzerland, but then you go home. So we have to direct our efforts onto state building, because at home they will feel better if teachers will inform them that we are studying, we are okay, the process is going on, children can have friends. So these processes will be self-regulated, because they they were running from something bad. But if we show this, this will foster return. You cannot motivate this by money. These things are not motivated by money, only by the inside motivation. By love, you can show that this is your home. Come here, and we have to take effort to show this, that we manage to regulate this process. These are technical things, and Ukrainian Ukrainian nation is highly intellectual and educated, and there are many specialists who know how to do it. The only thing that we need access to introducing this stuff, and we need to try to communicate this, because communication is the key thing by which we can motivate. Uh, even if we leave even our super adaptive women abroad will come back. But this is about competition, because Czech politicians are saying out loud, let's think how to how to make sure that Ukrainian women bring their men here as well. These are half official statements. Yes, I would like to add, yes, those children that are abroad will be probably attending schools abroad. Yeah, but this is a direct obligation of the parents before their children, according to legislation. Yes, but if they study abroad and in Ukrainian schools, um, Yulia mentioned already, there is possible the status of free listener. Also, at the focus group, we discussed another interesting idea, that for one community there should be created a distant school. For instance, if a class studies offline and one child is online, so it should be organized technically somehow. This poses a lot of difficulties. Let's ask Yulia. Let's say you are abroad, your child is attending that normal school, and then additional online school Plus, you have to think about some extracurricular activities, different groups, sports activities, how to pack all this into one day. That's a challenge, and how to cope with it. Yes, of course. The bodies of the central authorities and the regional authorities have to work on this. How to make sure that children can study abroad, but at the same time could attend some online classes and be not overloaded at the same time. So it's a complex work that has to be done to organize all this process. Do I understand it right that Ukraine requires a state level national program? How to keep Ukrainians in Ukraine? Yes, we are saying that children will study both there and there. Let's say a child is attending classes at Polish school and studies in Ukraine online at the same time. We have a tradition that a child should attend certain subjects that cannot be substituted by subjects in Poland. For instance, Ukrainian language, history of Ukraine. This is the stuff that the child will not receive in Poland because it's a different state. Let's say physics, he can study in Poland, and Ukrainian language is studied in Ukrainian school. But again, we face the question of overload, of emotional exhaustion, because you have to switch between two different classes, two different friends, two different types of tasks. But this is something we can work on. And I think this research is already a first step that revealed to us a lot of questions, a lot of problems. And on the basis of this survey, we can develop recommendations and instructions for the Ministry of Education, for the local authorities. We should not be aiming at doing everything by the 1st of September, but we should be ready to implement this during the academic year. Let's discuss now a taboo topic, the topic of language. It was mentioned, number one, in your survey results. How to make sure that the language does not create premises for ghetto in a class, for bullying in a class, in a group. So, with whom shall we work here? With children, with parents? Because the perception of a language depends on how parents behave. What's to be done with that? First of all, there should be no pressure, because any pressure causes aversion and resistance. That's why during the consulting period, can I lend you down a little bit? Let's say there is a class with Ukrainian speaking children, and we have Russian speaking children coming over on the level of collective. We are not talking about abstract stuff. For the children on the level of group, Russian language is the language of occupants and those who kill us. But the children who speak Russian are not guilty of this. How to avoid this? We are not talking here about pressure. We are just implementing the children who are bearers of a different language, a language of occupier, into our classes. We conducted a survey. According to the results of the survey, more than 50% of children can master Ukrainian. Well, even Russians understand Ukrainian. So there is not such a huge problem, but of course we have to develop their knowledge of Ukrainian. For those children who do not speak Ukrainian, we should organize something different to make sure it's not kind of pressure, but rather a help, to make sure it does not create a resistance within the group. Of course, local children should be also explained that these children, the consultation, maybe one child from a class should become a tutor and help the newcomers with the Ukrainian language, with tradition. So what, to make them read Stefanik at night? Yes, it's a very delicate issue, but this is the question of conflict, a conflict among the adults, not about children. But that's what I said. That's what I said, that children perceive their language depending on how their parents perceive it. Yes, I am a mother of a teenager. What helps to be resistible, resilient? Children should develop very strong position and respect the other. But goes away, and the child will follow the Ukrainian speaker, those friendly Ukrainian speakers. That's why it is significant not to have a rigid, aggressive position, but a position of dignity. My language is beautiful. My language is wonderful. It sounds wonderful. It matters. Ukrainian language matters. Yeah, we don't have a problem with Ukrainian, but we will have a problem with those who speak Russian. This is not a problem as well. They speak the way they can, but if our language perseveres, they will start repeating. They will start speaking with Surzhyk, with a mixture of Ukrainian and Russian. But this is not what matters. But it matters to what extent I adjust or not, or do not adjust to the situation. And if the other person is speaking and I can understand them and we can be friends, then this is a kind of positive contamination. And then 3 children in a class, let's say, may adjust themselves to Ukrainian. They will start teaching their parents to speak Ukrainian. Uh, for instance, I faced in therapy clients from Kherson who wanted to speak Ukrainian, who really accepted the idea that Russian language is the language of occupier. Kherson is not a Russian territory; it's a surrealism. But when they felt the pressure that in trams and buses they were all the time paid attention to this, a 4-year-old child would continue speaking the language it grew with, the Russian one. And this brings conflict. How to make sure we do not press? We discuss this lack of pressure, but it should not be just declared, but it should be present in conversations. That you are at home, you can speak any language at home, but there are some subjects at school that are taught in Ukrainian, and there is Ukrainian language here. This can be caught up in a year. This can be compensated. This does not have that big difference if you don't get fixed on this, if you don't overscale it. Just show positive example. Positive example is contaminating people. It's infective. It's infectious. So this we have positive experience that this does work. A good example infects people. I mean more that everybody has to prepare to work psychologically, and I think also in communication we have to prepare ourselves, because there will be different unpleasant cases, because people like to pay attention to unpleasant cases. So maybe we will have a wrong picture formed. That's why all these problems should be prevented. That's what I wanted to say. We conducted this survey from June to July, and we were in a hurry to present it in the beginning of August so that the schools could communicate, could process the results, could talk to their psychologists. There is a Center of the Dignity of a Child based at the Ukrainian Catholic University. How to develop individual safety policies, this algorithm of activity, what's to be done in this or another situation, so that everybody does their own activity and creativity. Let's say some parents demand, I want this child to be instructed only in Russian, and adults should know at school what are they to do under this or another situation. This should be somehow on a general level, but in general we have what, that every school has its own policy, security policy. We have these 11 points. It's somewhere there, but it's not outlined as a separate point. So we offer that schools should develop a mechanism how to assign this tutor. So tutor may be just your neighbor in the classroom. how grown-ups should react, because some adults, teachers, they are adults, but they do not necessarily approach situation with wisdom. From my experience, teachers are the least adaptive and least learning to least willing to learn subject. Yes. Yeah, we say that every teacher who closes the door to their classroom becomes the minister of education. That's why we still want everybody to discuss this in this process. Use our thoughts, our developed results, checked and validated by a huge amount of people, to make sure that we prevent a lot of unpleasant situations, that we create safe space for teachers and for children. And I also want to add that we plan to conduct some kind of training, not on the national level, not obligatory to everyone, but we want to conduct a general training with involving psychologists who can give some expertise advice. This moment of positive impacts the situation most of all. What do I mean positive? Not to launch aggression. You have to be friendly, to know what are your duties under different situations, what is the algorithm of your activity. Also, it's all there in the recommendations, and it follows up with this story, because we are used to saying that Galicia is great. Galicia is the great part of Ukraine, especially it sits in the heads of the Galicians. But the other question is that the children come over and they need to say how great they are. What they did at Christmas, how they cook borscht. It should not be just a one-way communication. Teachers should understand that these children did not come here to take everything that is here. They also came to show us what kind of Ukraine is. When we had Lviv residents in every class, very little other region representatives we had in our class. And now 3, 4, 5 children, maybe from completely different remote regions of Ukraine. And talking about Lviv, we have different traditions, but let's take Transcarpathian. They, apart from Ukrainian, they can learn some other languages, not only Ukrainian, they will become polyglots. So this cultural exchange is important. It's not about exchanging, but about showing that uh, the child that is a newcomer is also important. He or she also matters, and the tradition they brought from the other region does matter. We are all together one Ukraine. Okay, now we'll need to have a snack. What about the material provision? Offline requires Online requires computers and special communication program. We have problem with buses. We have problem with renovation and money to equip shelters. How will this all be sorted out by the 1st of September? And how much attention is paid by the parents to all this? I think that about technical equipment, tablets and stuff like that, Yulia will say more on this. I will say that this is a little bit of bubble, that we don't have money for shelters. Everybody's talking about this. It's so, but I think the community of Veliki Mosty at their own cost are buying mobile shelter. So there is a special mobile shelter. So parents initiated this. They say whatever sum you announce. I haven't seen it. I don't know how it looks like. When they insert this, I will go and see when they set it up. Maybe it's not the best way. It's not the most democratic way, not the best national scale way, but it's significant that if parents want to make sure that their children attend school in person and are provided with good quality education, they can create the the shelter. And I think it's okay. The question why this and that was not done, we will solve this later. We have to attend to the issues according to their significance. Directors, the principals, are not asking for money. They are only waiting for the premises where to move the IDP children. They will find the money, they will find the sponsors, they will go to the local authorities and make their life hard to get that money. The most important thing for them to hear that this is your school, do whatever you want, and the parents will help. Because when we say that everything is so bad, it's more about political games. But in reality, people are moving because they want so much to make sure that their children are provided and secured with offline studying. Yeah, people like to say that everything is bad. We interviewed 250 parents and asked them, do you have money for buying basic stuff for school, including tablets, especially parents from IDP families? And our hypothesis was that they don't have money. Well, 30% of them said they can afford this themselves, but some 30% cannot even think about affording this. What does this mean? That if there is no money, then it would be inefficient just to distribute this stuff, or like presents, according to their social status. Probably we would have to gather some applications and not to deliver to distribute it among everyone. We understand that around 30% of children are in this risk group not to attend school at all. This is not something we made up, but there are different NGOs, organizations, that are dealing with security, and for them, being a child from IDP family is a risk factor for not for a child not to attend school, because maybe parents feel too shy. They are not sure of their decision. We have a lot of IDPs who are not registered. They are not under control. Nobody knows where they are. They don't have money for a tablet. They don't have money for a school uniform. If, let's say, it's a school that requires wearing uniform, and they say, okay, then for this year the child will not be attending a school, and we will wait for this year. And even within our interactive group, there was a boy from Donetsk region, don't remember exactly the city. He said he was not attending school for the whole year because he left school to study in technical school, and then the war began and he didn't do anything. And he said, well, I'm already at the class 11, so what for to go to school? I'm afraid we will have a whole bunch of children like this. That's why we advise in one of our points that this should be monitored, that some executive bodies, social security service, educational department should somehow make sure that these newcomers are not left out of school. We understand that it is complicated, both psychologically and organizationally, yes, but this should be taken care of. We have hostilities, and our leaders, our country leaders are dealing with this. But this stuff should also be attended. These moments are also significant because this is our future, and we hope that this survey that is backgrounded with facts will attract attention and people will start thinking about this. We are about to finish. Now I would like each of you to say in a couple of words, what are your expectations from the 1st of September and the new school year? What kind of year is awaiting us? Let me start. Uh, Uh, Briefly, it will be difficult because we have a lot of problems. I am expecting the communities to understand that there are many opportunities they can realize for their communities, because IDPs become part of their community. And sometimes it does not even require any funds, just desire. Then on the 1st of September, our children will attend schools and receive high quality education. I will follow up with this. Yes, indeed, there are lots of opportunities for communities in the sense that many international organizations who are eager to solve issues on the surface, social type of issues, the issues that were never raised before, they were just lying on the surface. And these rigid educational constructions have to be now um, more plastic, more flexible, and to let them develop, because we are talking here not so much about monitoring and which blunders will we find in this dictation and how shall we correct them. No, it's when there are some questions and there are no solutions, then just raise questions, let them be raised, and we will help to solve them, because children and their education is everything that we have. It's everything on which we will be able to construct this house of high quality and make our country prosperous. I am expecting from the process, from the educational process, that it will be maximum safe. That's why the directors of schools will be taking decision themselves how to organize the process safely, how to make sure that the children can go offline, or if they cannot study offline, they can continue online or distance education. So security is number one. And secondly, since we have a lot of IDPs in Lviv, I am expecting that this situation will be used for the cultural exchange and for mutual integration. Because I think before that, we didn't have such an opportunity to be so close to each other. And in this situation, we should use it and we should get integrated. You know, Ukrainians always like to say how poor they are. But in fact, we are a cool country. And for centuries, we've been able to survive. I am saying this because this is exactly the moment when we have to keep our children at a certain level. And if our women and our men are fighting at the front, then on the 1st of September, we are opening educational front for our teachers. And from them will depend not only what is happening now, but also what will happen in future. And we are here to help them, to help the families. This is our patriotic note, our patriotic contribution into this process. We are ready to help to make sure that our children are not only physically healthy, but also mentally healthy. And of course, I am expecting the strengthening and empowering of the anti-air attack of our forces, especially in those communities where children will attend school. Yes, I would like to use this occasion to make sure that the educational process changes. We were talking today about our educational system, our schools, how children from refugee families and locals will go to one class. And now I would present our speakers. Oleh Dukas, expert from the Council of Europe, strengthening the participation of communities, expert from the Council of Europe, strengthening the participation of communities in the democratic decision-making process. Ivanna Herus, representative of the Commission in the City Council from the educational issues, and our psychotherapist and psychologist from the Maltese Aid. And her badge tells us about her position. In 12:30, we will have a briefing with Alexander Mereshko, head of the committee from the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine on the international communication. We will talk about the consequences and results of high guest top